Through the ages and through the seasons, Zelda's been as important to the Legend of Zelda franchise as Link himself. But which version of the magical princess reigns supreme? Let's take a look. Princess Zelda debuted in 1986 alongside Link, Impa, and Ganon in the game that started it all, The Legend of Zelda. The NES title established many of the series' most well-known features, including what became one of the industry's most quoted phrases, "It's dangerous to go alone, take this." It also sets into motion the long tradition of Zelda playing second fiddle to Link despite the fact that the franchise bears her name and not his. Zelda gets kidnapped by Ganon before the action of The Legend of Zelda kicks off, leaving her with very little screen time. Though she succeeded in keeping the Triforce of Courage away from the Prince of Darkness, the plot centers on Link reassembling the fragments of the magical artifact she painstakingly hid away so he can go save the princess. Throughout this process, the Kingdom of Hyrule remains at Ganon's mercy. Since Link needs the Triforce piece to defeat Ganon, it calls into question the wisdom of Zelda's decision to sunder it and distribute the pieces across 8 labyrinthine dungeons in the first place. The Legend of Zelda remains an iconic game, but it is far from the princess's best outing.
Watch Zelda become a legend on your Nintendo Entertainment System.
Zelda!
The Adventure of Link functions as a bit of an oddity for the Zelda series. Though it serves as a direct sequel to The Legend of Zelda, Zelda 2 favors a mixture of side-scrolling and top-down views along with RPG elements. It also utilizes a life feature that hasn't turned up in any other installment. The gameplay differences in the second entry may stand out, but its portrayal of Princess Zelda does not. The royal takes on the role of Sleeping Beauty thanks to a magical slumber, keeping her off-screen as Link fights his way through multiple palaces to claim the Triforce of Courage. Adding a bit of intrigue, it turns out that this version is the original namesake of the princess from the first title. She's been snoozing for multiple generations due to a conflict with her brother and an overeager wizard. While she gets some points for standing up to her sibling to protect their father's secrets, the whole situation seems like it could have been avoided with better communication, a recurring theme for the franchise. Many Zelda fans choose to ignore the trio of non-canon Zelda titles developed for the Philips CDI, and with good reason. These bad boys have a lot of problems ranging from terrifying animation to bad level design and controls. But the second and third entries, The Wand of Gamelon and Zelda's Adventure, stand out as the first games to make Zelda the playable character. The Philips CDI entries don't do Princess Zelda many favors, especially when it comes to her unflattering character designs, but she does at least get to play the hero. In The Wand of Gamelon, she saves both Link and her father, the King of Hyrule, after neutralizing Ganon and a number of his minions. She rescues Link and takes on Ganon again on her own in Zelda's Adventure.
What happened?
Nothing, Link. We were just about to have a feast.
Though fans have long wished to see Zelda as a playable character, the Philips CDI entries kind of make a mockery of that dream. It's quite unfortunate that they were the first to place the princess in a starring role, though at least they don't have a spot in the official Zelda lore. A Super NES masterpiece, A Link to the Past established even more of the classic components of the Zelda IP. Items like the Master Sword and Hookshot appeared for the first time in the entry, as did the concept of traveling between parallel worlds. Princess Zelda also plays a greater role in the plot than she did in the first 2 entries, though not by much. Keeping with tradition, Zelda winds up kidnapped by one of Ganon's servants, the wizard Aghanim. She summons Link to Hyrule Castle to help her out, and they manage to escape Aghanim, at least for a time. Zelda then goes into hiding with a helpful priest while Link ventures forth to acquire the Master Sword. Zelda gets captured not once but twice in A Link to the Past, and the trend continues in Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages. These titles feature the same Zelda who gets kidnapped by the antagonist's twin Rova as part of their plot to resurrect Ganon. While she does receive more screen time, this Zelda unfortunately still functions as little more than a damsel and plot device to further Link's story. Released on the Game Boy Advance, Four Swords took much of the A Link to the Past format and adapted it for multiplayer. Featuring 2 to 4 color-coded links, this entry switches up the formula a bit to accommodate co-op play. For example, players compete to get the most rupees in each level and can only equip one item at once. Unfortunately, it does little to expand on Zelda's character. Four Swords sees Princess Zelda watching over the Four-Sword Sanctuary and the artifact housed within, which serves as a prison for the sorcerer Vati. Sensing that something is off, Zelda calls on her old friend Link to examine the shrine with her. Of course, the seal keeping Vati trapped wanes and he escapes, kidnapping Zelda in the process. Beyond her capture, it's yet another example of Zelda failing at her sworn task, prompting Link, or 4 Links in this case, to come in, save her, and clean up the mess. The princess just can't catch a break. Another Game Boy Advance title, the Minish Cap, centers on the origin story of the Fourth Sword and how Vaati ended up trapped inside of it. While it features a lot of classic Zelda elements, it also incorporates some new ideas, such as allowing Link to shrink down to a much smaller size with the aid of a sentient hat named Eslo. This time around, Zelda enjoys a bit of screen time before getting shelved. She and her pal Link go to a festival together, and she even wins a prize during the outing, a shield that she gifts to her friend and protector. Of course, Vaati shows up and ruins the fun, though instead of kidnapping Zelda, he transforms her into a stone statue. While a nice twist, this move still takes her out of commission for the bulk of the game. Link eventually saves the day, but it's a bit of a bummer that players don't get more time with this version of the princess. A sequel to Four Swords created for the GameCube, Four Swords Adventures sends Link and his 3 duplicates on another quest. While the crew rightly suspects Vaati may escape his prison again, the story also pits them against the hero's dark counterpart, the dreaded Shadow Link. On top of that, it throws in Ganon as the mastermind behind the whole plot. Zelda's role unfolds in a rather typical fashion at first, with Shadow Link kidnapping her and all 6 Shrine Maidens at the same time. After the Links save her, Zelda gets trapped again by Ganon after she faces him alone. Though the protagonists quickly break her free, thankfully the princess then gets another moment to shine, assisting in the battle against Ganon by wielding magical balls of light. Because of this power and the aid of the other Shrine Maidens, the Links can finally seal Ganon within the Fourth Sword. Throughout 1991 and 1992, a dozen choose-your-own-adventure-style novels hit the market as part of the Nintendo Adventure Book series. While most of the stories center on the Mario franchise, 2 feature the Zelda universe. The second, The Shadow Prince, places Link in a variety of perilous situations. The first, The Crystal Trap, puts Princess Zelda front and center. In a rare twist for the IP, Zelda must work through a number of dungeons and environments to save Link from a spell cast by Ganon. She has only 24 hours to break the spell, or he'll end up trapped inside a crystal forever. While not the most groundbreaking portrayal of either character, it's nice to see Link playing the damsel and Zelda the hero for a change. The Zelda franchise got its own animated series in 1989 as part of the Super Mario Bros. Super Show. While the cartoon presents some nostalgic pleasure for fans, it didn't get the best reception, and it only lasted 13 episodes. Nevertheless, it still has a few fun moments to offer. Much like the Philips CDI games, the show features Zelda taking a more active role in the conflict against Ganon, wielding a variety of weapons to aid Link in safeguarding the Triforce of Wisdom. Despite this, she still plays the damsel, with Link urging Zelda to kiss him pretty much nonstop. While a bit grating to watch again and again, this running gag led to a favorite catchphrase among certain gamers.
Hey! Excuse me, princess.
Cartoon Zelda displays a strong personality and is not afraid to give Link, who often loafs around the castle, a piece of her mind. The 2 characters don't have the most attractive designs, but at least they get to work together in a variety of wacky scenarios to foil Ganon's plots. In the early 90s, Valiant Comics published a non-canonical run of 5 comics which take place after the events of the first 2 Zelda games, where Link and Zelda continue to work to prevent Ganon from getting his hands on the Triforce of Wisdom. While the comics have a lot in common with the Legend of Zelda animated miniseries, they offer a slightly more serious tone and a variety of problems to solve. Zelda once again gets to fight in different conflicts, even rescuing Link from time to time. The comics also mitigate some of the more annoying aspects of the TV series by making it plain that Zelda and Link share a reciprocated romantic connection. Though not part of the official timeline, Cadence of Hyrule blends the Zelda franchise with the rhythm-based Crypt of the Necrodancer. The mechanics of both series come together to offer an enjoyable twist on the familiar, with the hero Cadence getting pulled to the Kingdom of Hyrule to assist with a musical problem. Why?
They need a little extra help.
Rather than just focusing on Cadence, the title also follows Link and Princess Zelda as they take on the lute-strumming Octavo and his quartet of champions. Zelda steps into the role of playable character for this outing, wielding both weapons and magic while facing off against a mix of new challenges and classic Zelda baddies. This Zelda functions as a refreshing take on a character who often gets left out in her own franchise. However, the game's relatively short runtime and place outside of Zelda canon tarnish the princess's luster just a bit. A Link Between Worlds honors the legacy of its predecessor, A Link to the Past, while still offering some unique mechanics, like Link's ability to merge with walls. Much like A Link to the Past, the 3DS entry features parallel worlds, the familiar Hyrule and the less familiar Lorule, a kingdom that once had its own Triforce and has fallen into ruin following its destruction. This version of Princess Zelda rules Hyrule alone. She's captured by Yuga, a sinister sorcerer trying to resurrect Ganon, but she contributes to the final conflict by providing Link with the Bow of Light. She and Link also show great kindness, using the wish granted by the reassembled Triforce to restore Lorule's own Triforce, saving the Mirror Kingdom despite the problems its inhabitants caused for Hyrule throughout the game. Fans don't get many opportunities to play as Princess Zelda, so her inclusion in the Super Smash Bros. Games is particularly exciting. She debuted in 2001's Melee in her Ocarina of Time form, with a moveset including spells inspired by Nehru's Love, Din's Fire, and Furore's Wind. She can also transform into Sheik, which is something that sets her apart from other Melee characters. In 2008's Super Smash Bros. Brawl, Zelda appears in her Twilight Princess form. This version makes use of the potent Final Smash Light Arrow. Unfortunately, the excitement of getting to play as Princess Zelda is somewhat diminished by her low-tier rankings in both games, leaving her outranked by most of the other fighters. By Smash Bros. 4, she could no longer turn into Sheik and ranked 53rd out of 54 characters. In Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, she was modeled after her Link to the Past appearance and got a new Final Smash, Triforce of Wisdom. Still, it wasn't enough to pull her out of 75th place on the Ultimate roster rankings. Zelda has made several non-canon appearances over the years. Of these instances, her two Hyrule Warriors iterations stand out the most. The first Hyrule Warriors entry features different playable versions of Zelda. There's Sheik from Ocarina of Time, Tetra from The Wind Waker, and a Princess Zelda that possesses powers, items, and weapons drawn from or inspired by multiple series entries. The latter combines magic and martial prowess as the leader of Hyrule's forces. In the second Hyrule Warriors entry, Age of Calamity, players fight Calamity Ganon. Set 100 years before the events of Breath of the Wild, the hack-and-slash game features an alternate take on the same Princess Zelda. Drawing on her more scholarly inclinations, she can unleash a number of abilities using the Sheikah Slate. She also makes use of the Bow of Light and gets an adorable guardian companion, further adding to her charm.
Zelda, you are my pride, and indeed, the pride of all Hyrule.
Skyward Sword, released for the Wii in 2011, includes a slightly different take on Link and Zelda, casting them as students of Skyloft's Knight Academy. This version of Zelda, the first in the official Zelda timeline, doesn't bear royal blood, though she does turn out to be the original mortal reincarnation of the goddess Hylia. While Zelda is kidnapped in the first act, she subverts expectations by escaping the villain and instead setting out to fulfill her destiny. She conducts multiple rituals, travels through time, and sacrifices her own freedom to ensure the destruction of Demise, one of the era's greatest threats. The bulk of her journey and struggles may not unfold on screen, but this Zelda accomplishes what she sets out to do and bears equal responsibility for saving the world. Skyward Sword also depicts a romantic aspect of Link and Zelda's relationship that doesn't appear in most other Zelda games. Here, they feel like an evenly matched pair, making the Skyward Sword Zelda one of the most capable and memorable of the lot. Twilight Princess is one of the games that represents the Zelda franchise at its darkest. The title kicks off with some child kidnappings and sees Link deprived of his body, forced to take the form of a wolf. The people of Hyrule, caught in the perpetual twilight unleashed by the sorcerer Zant, all transform into spirits. This Zelda is a regal, tragic figure. The sole ruler of Hyrule, she surrendered to Zant to prevent the destruction of her citizens, becoming a prisoner within her own castle. She first appears in dark clothing, but later she sheds the robes, revealing regalia befitting a monarch. This, along with the longsword she wields and other stylistic choices, combines to form Zelda's most elegant character design in the entire franchise. Zelda also sacrifices her physical form to save Midna, a princess from another realm. This allows Ganondorf to take control of her body, creating Puppet Zelda, a particularly noteworthy sub-boss. After Midna restores Zelda to her normal state, the Hyrule Royal assists Link in the final showdown. Despite facing a number of tragedies and setbacks, the Twilight Princess Zelda never gives up, putting the strength of her spirit on display. The Wind Waker introduced players to one of the most unforgettable takes on Princess Zelda, Tetra. Unaware of her royal heritage, Tetra has lived her life on the high seas as the captain of a pirate ship. Befitting her chosen career path, she sports pants, a curved blade, and an unflappable confidence in her abilities. Tetra doesn't escape the damsel in distress trope, but she makes contributions throughout the game. Notably, she's the first iteration to join Link during the Ganon boss fight. Even with the threat vanquished, she retains her sense of adventure, sailing off with Link in search of new places to explore. Unfortunately, when it came to Phantom Hourglass, she disappears from the story almost immediately, with Link later discovering that she's been turned to stone and is relying on him to save her. It's a pretty disappointing final outing for a Zelda that showed so much promise in her debut game. The Nintendo DS title Spirit Tracks takes place almost a century after Wind Waker. Due to the time skip, players meet new versions of both Link and Zelda, and the princess takes a much more active role this time around. From the start, Spirit Tracks sets itself apart from other Zelda entries. Players actually get to play as Zelda during an escape sequence, and she remains a core part of the gameplay. Though the antagonist steals the princess's body, she retains her spirit form. In this guise, she can possess phantom guardians, helping Link solve puzzles and move through different environments. After returning to her body, Zelda joins Link in the final battle, calling on her magic and light arrows. Given that this Zelda is a direct descendant of Tetra and bears a strong resemblance to the pirate captain, Spirit Tracks manages to partially make up for the missed opportunities of Phantom Hourglass. Breath of the Wild is a mixed bag in terms of its portrayal of Zelda. She receives her most in-depth characterization here, but she also has little agency during the events of the actual game, instead appearing largely through flashbacks. Prior to the happenings of Breath of the Wild, Zelda spent years training in an attempt to unlock the magic passed down through her line, during which time she developed a fraught relationship with her protector, Link.
She gets frustrated every time she looks up and sees you carrying that sword on your back. It makes her feel like a failure when it comes to her own destiny.
Unable to access her magic despite her efforts, she sees the night as a constant reminder of her own inadequacies. While Zelda's magic eventually manifested, it wasn't in time to save the champions, her father, and much of Hyrule from the devastation of Calamity Ganon. These losses weigh on her heavily, and she spends 100 years trapped in Hyrule Castle with the villain, using her own powers to keep him from breaking free. She guides Link telepathically during his quest, but doesn't get to contribute much beyond an assist during the final encounter with Dark Beast Ganon. Though it would have been nice for Zelda to have more to do during Breath of the Wild, it still offers one of the most nuanced takes on the princess, along with some stellar character design work. In addition to portraying Link as a top-tier hero, Ocarina of Time includes one of the most memorable Zeldas. Players first encounter a younger Princess of Destiny, and despite her age, she catches on to Ganondorf's shady motives. She's able to set plans into motion that prevent a total loss when the Gerudo King takes over Hyrule Castle. Zelda then spends 7 years in hiding, training for a rematch under the guise of the mysterious Sheik, as she waits for Link to emerge from the Sacred Realm. Though she can't vanquish Ganondorf on her own, she assists the Hero of Time in awakening the other sages, who she leads as the bearer of the Triforce of Wisdom. While the Big Bad does kidnap her towards the end of the story, she and the sages play a key role in Ganondorf's defeat, which allows them to trap him in the Dark Realm. Of all the versions of the princess, this Zelda has the greatest impact on the Zelda universe. Her decisions during the course of Ocarina of Time lead to the creation of 3 timelines: the Fallen Hero timeline, the Child timeline, and the Adult timeline. Due to this far-reaching influence, she comes out on top in the Zelda rankings.